I'm Andrew Patterson from interest.co.nz. Welcome to another in our business success series. With me today, one of the legends of New Zealand business, Sir Ken Stevens, the Managing Director of Glidepath. Sir Ken, welcome.
Oh, and welcome, Andrew, and welcome to Glidepath.
So Ken, 40 years in the business, you had your 40th anniversary last year. I wondered when you started Thomson Engineering in 1972, or when you acquired it, that you thought you'd still be running it 40 years later.
I had no idea that it would last this long. It's been quite a journey, and a lot of it's been very pleasurable. There's been the odd niggle or two along the way, as there is with any company, but I've got to say, generally speaking, it's been a great adventure.
You've seen an amazing transition, because from that time, of course, as we all know, 1972, we were probably one of the most regulated economies in the world. It was very closed, and you've had to manage the business all the way through those dramatic changes in the 80s and through to the highly intense competitive environment you play in today. What stands out for you about that whole process?
Well, at the outset, 1972, the oil shocks. And I think I borrowed my mortgage money to fund my way into the business at a pretty reasonable sort of a rate, about 8%. Just a year after that, they were 17, 18 and more %. So I was thankful for that. But those were heady times, and I don't think we didn't have any idea what inflation was up until then. But we certainly learned pretty fast around about that time.
Was there any point that you were genuinely worried about the ability of the company to continue in business?
No, there never has really been, because we've always been capable of going out and getting some more business. We've had our real shortfalls for a time, and I remember at one stage we took on the building of a couple of 47-foot trawlers, and that was interesting too.
So what made you settle into baggage handling, which is where your specialty lies today? What was the impetus to focus in that particular sector?
We turned out to be quite good, and we were looking quite good in baggage handling, and we kind of liked the experience. And we were working in airports, which are largely reasonably clean compared with petroleum producing areas and coal mines and things like that. So airports sort of appealed to us, and we're good at it. So after an experience at Adelaide Airport, we decided, hey, this is good stuff, we're good at this, let's concentrate and specialise in it.
What's happened in that space over the period that you've been in there? And I imagine if we would go back and look at a baggage handling system in the 1970s, it wouldn't dare resemble anything that we see today.
Well, strangely, there is mechanically there's not much difference in what they do. The speeds and feeds are a whole lot greater than they were, and the costs have come right down. I mean, we're just doing a few sums the other day. We could build the Brisbane system that we built for 17 million in 1976. We could build the same system for the same price today.
And of course, 9/11 perversely would have created some extra business for you, because all of a sudden the need to screen luggage and everything that went through, all of that changed in that dramatic year, didn't it?
Yeah, it did. And on the morning of 9/11, we were in, 4 of us were at an international conference in Montreal, and we were given the order for the Terminal 3 at Toronto International Airport. And of course, the events of 9/11 sort of left us gasping, and it took us 6 days to get out of that town and get back through LAX and back to New Zealand. And we didn't really know whether we had an industry or even a global trade. And to the extent that when we did kind of come to and look at it, the currency had gone against us, and we're over $500,000 in the hole before we even started. So with great Kiwi initiative, we opted for the do nothing as a strategy, and lo and behold, the forex rate came right, and we grabbed it and locked it in at that point. Lucky. Lucky
break. And we're out at your offices in Glen Eden, and it's not a huge building. I mean, given the template, the footprint that you have around the world, how do you run the business in terms of all of the manufacturing and the componentry and the way that you have to piece all this together?
Well, that's another thing. Our boys in the workshop have been with us a long time, 20, 25 years in a lot of cases. They output more than twice as much output in the same time as they used to 30 and 40 years ago, certainly. But we do outsource a whole lot of equipment these days to people around our neighbourhood here and overseas, depending where the job is. Shipping's such a big component of our jobs these days that we'll source all the trunking and the bog standard conveyor equipment from local sources if we can.
So you've adapted to this sort of just-in-time delivery. It's pretty well the standard manufacturing model now, isn't it? That you effectively outsource as much as you possibly can.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. We're well supported by a good bunch of subcontractors around this area, in fact.
What about the competitive space? Because Siemens just recently have exited this particular sector, and I know you previously they were competitors, but also JV partners in some areas. So how's that going to change the whole sector? Well,
Siemens are actively attempting to sell that division, and I think they've got merchant bankers all over it right now. It's hard to say because it's a difficult business right now to come into and to run and make a profit in. I'd hate to be someone coming in cold and trying to make it nowadays. I mean, just the margins and the lead times have just tightened right up to the extent that we really have to pull out all stops to get from A to B with a profit.
Because it's not the sort of thing that you buy regularly. I mean, you buy a baggage handling system and it lasts, I'm thinking, 20, 30 years, does it? So yeah. So particularly when you build them well. So this isn't the sort of product that people are needing to buy very frequently, and that must create some headaches for trying to manage the workflow.
Yeah, I mean, generally speaking, an airport will change out their systems every, say, 7 to 10 years. Some of the more growth-oriented airports will be quicker than that because the growth is spectacular in some markets, and they just need to keep pushing the walls out.
So how do you determine what you get involved? I mean, just the scale of your business doesn't allow you to do the very big fit outs. So where do you tend to specialise?
We try and limit our any one contract to about 20 million US, 25 million US, that kind of money. And we look for that's the intermediate contracts, the huge international contracts like Beijing and places like that in Abu Dhabi and Dubai. They're hundreds of millions of dollars, and we don't play in that space.
So it's mainly US and regional airports, Australia, those sort of markets.
Yeah, the US markets are. The systems are a little smaller because they fragment them and split them up between different terminals and different carriers. So there's very few brand new terminals being built in the US or have been built for some time.
What about in the innovation space? Because the people that have been to places like Kelly Tarleton's in Auckland with the famous moving pathway, you develop. In fact, you've got some fairly unique expertise in the world at being able to develop those walk systems that actually go around corners, haven't you?
That's correct. We've got 40 of those around the world, and one came up for a bit of maintenance and spare parts just the other day, and I hadn't heard hide nor hair of that job, and it was a job that Her Majesty the Queen opened in Blackpool, and it must be 15 years ago, so it must have run pretty well because we don't have a lot of call for spare parts for it.
Do you have kind of researchers who are looking at the technology side of the business all the time?
Yeah, we do, and we've got a couple of people here that do nothing else but technology, and we work closely with the Callaghan Innovation Institute, the new division of MB.
When you think about New Zealand, where we're sitting at the moment, because you've been a leading light as an advocate for the growth in the export sector and so forth, what's your sense about where we're sitting in that space at the moment?
I'm reasonably au fait and calm about it, although I'm not totally satisfied that we're doing enough to create new export businesses that'll provide the sort of work opportunity for the kids coming through. And when I say kids coming through, I mean the Asian diaspora who are coming through, and some brilliant kids in their thousands, and the kids that go through our KiwiBots robotics courses, and those kids are brilliant. They've won the World Championships 5 times consecutively. My trepidation is that we won't have sufficient jobs for them in time to come, and we've got to work really hard on that.
Because that's the question, is that, today, would you be starting a business like Glidepath today?
That'd be a hard one to answer. Really, the place for Glidepath would be headquartered overseas. I mean, we're far from the market here. Time and distance is a huge factor for us. But we're used to travelling, so we've got that on our side, I suspect. But this is an interesting business, and it covers mechanical, it covers electrical, it covers software, and it covers construction. So it's an interesting business, and we've trained a lot of people over the years at Glidepath.
And this is the question, though, isn't it? Because it provides employment. You've got 166 employees, very specialists in a lot of areas. But these are not the sort of businesses that are being created that much in New Zealand these days. So we're going down the technology route. Is that something that you're supportive of? Oh
yeah, absolutely. And you did right that they are not being recreated in New Zealand these days, nor are they in the USA, because with simultaneously with Siemens dropping out of the industry late last year, another company, G&T Conveyor, dropped out, and that was the last indigenous US baggage handling systems contractor. So all the rest of us were all foreigners. And so I think that's ironic that that great country doesn't have its own indigenous people doing that sort of work.
And it is a sort of a moving feast, isn't it? I mean, how do you make those judgment calls now for what the world is going to be needing in another 5 or 10 years time? I mean, it's a difficult planning paradigm, isn't it? Within the world that we live in.
It is a very difficult one, and I mean, there's nothing better than feet in the market, in sensing what the market needs, people in the market, inquiring, selling, marketing, and just time in the market is the greatest thing for us. Bring back the opportunities for our smart scientists, for instance, to work with New Zealand companies that have an export aspiration to really provide world-class materials and products.
Do you think we burn enough shoe leather? We spoke to Bill Gallagher in this series a few months ago, and he said that part of the problem is New Zealanders don't necessarily want to get on a plane and go and actually spend some time in the markets. You're heading off to Indonesia in a week or two's time. You've travelled some phenomenal number of miles over the years. Is that something that we should be doing a bit more, do you think?
Well, nobody can burn as much shoe leather as Sir Bill Gallagher, that's for sure. Not even me, that's absolutely sure. Bill's been a pioneer in that sort of thing, and he spends his time on the road. He knows instinctively what his market wants, and he's able to decipher that and bring it back for his people to provide. There's an awful lot of opportunity still in the world out there for our people, but we need top products, top people, and certainly top people on the ground and people in market selling them.
Of course, in your own case, are you contemplating retirement anytime soon?
Yeah, well, I've got lots of little boats up at my beach house that need remedial work and a bit of lick and a promise. So in 3 years' time, I think I'll be sort of hanging up my hat a little bit more so than now.
And where's the future for Glidepath? Do you think, where would you like to see it in another decade? On its 50th anniversary.
Well, we've just brought a new brace of young management people through here, and that's in the project department, the engineering department, and in sales, and they're an enlightenment, because they're hitting their straps, and they're in the market, and they're just doing things at a whole higher pace and a whole lot with more energy and enthusiasm than we've seen here for a long time. So I'm heartened by that.